I'm looking to buy a small business, but what questions do I ask a small business M&A lawyer? Today, we'll dive in. Disclaimer: the content provided by SMB PE LLC is for illustrative and educational purposes only. This video does not constitute financial, legal, or business advice. Always do your own research and consult with qualified professionals before making any decisions. While we strive for accuracy, we do not guarantee the completeness or correctness of the information and are not responsible for any errors or omissions. SMB PE LLC reserves the right to modify disclaimer at any time notice. Please review our full disclaimer before moving forward. Hey everybody, we're back with another lesson today. And this one today is going to be in our service provider category. And we're going to try and start to integrate some more stuff from online in here where there's expertise outside of our level, right? So I'm not a lawyer, I'm not in accounting, and those are important parts of this. So we're trying to give you some real knowledge from outside people, right? When it comes to small business, I really recommend working with small business brokers if you can. I've heard a lot of horror stories from people who work with outside legal firms that work in, divorce or insurance or other fields, and they don't have the information when it comes to small business M&A. When this on the seller side, they might have a long-term legal person they work with, but as a buyer, it's important to have a basic understanding of okay, if I am going to go to a law firm and ask them to represent me on this really important life decision, how much does it cost? What's your background, et cetera. So this is from Eric. Eric is a great lawyer on SMB that we've seen in the space, post a lot. And so I thought it'd be great to grab his sections. And if you see here, here's kind of his overall tweet. I go through questions, we paste them up here, but here's his question list. Do you specialize in M&A? Have you worked on buy side, sell side, both? Buy side is representing individuals to buy a company. Sell side is representing companies to sell themselves to a bunch of buyers. So have you worked on which side of it, which part of the market have you worked on? Do you have a certain industry that you work on? What size do you typically work on? What size of EBITDA? What size SDE? Have you worked on a deal with an SBA lender before? Do you have expertise around what an SBA loan is? Do you understand the instrument? We're working on a deal right now, and understanding the financing package is very important for our buyer because, you have to work with both seller and buyer, given, there's not really room to have too many advisors on these kind of deals. The question would be, how many small business deals have you closed? Are you new to the space? Have you been around for a while? Folks that have been around for a long time might have a lot of expertise, but might be hard to get in touch with, whereas new and upcoming people might be experienced, but they might be hungrier. So, keep that in mind as you go through. Can you share client testimonials or reviews? Make sure when you take a look at that to look through their website, to have a Google business site. Some owners don't that are smaller, but if they do, it's a good way to poke around. If everyone says, they're miserable and they only have 1 star, then it's a good idea probably not to work with them. Number 6, what's your approach to drafting M&A documents? How do you think about deal structuring? Are you aggressive, balanced, standard? And this is, a good question in terms of, understanding what their approach is. So some people are very conservative and some people are more aggressive, and, understanding their style is important because you want someone you can work with in terms of how they think about your deal. If they're too risk averse or they don't protect you enough, that can be a problem. Which sell side attorneys have you worked with? It's always a good question to understand. Are you in the field? Do you have relationships? That's more of, again, a lawyer question because these questions are from lawyers. So number 8, do you have a network of specialists? We need them. Do you have, these other parts of the business? What's the breakdown of these fields? Understanding, do you have someone that can review my real estate documents, or do I have to go outside and go hire a firm to, do the real estate documents? Is insurance a very complicated part of it? If it's a healthcare deal, right? There's a lot that goes into insurance payments, and if you're up to code with Medicaid taxes, et cetera. So something to look at. Number 9, how do you prefer to communicate with clients? Are you every day? Is it every other week? Do we have a call once a month? Are you organized? Are you more, fly by the seat of your pants, technical, et cetera? This is someone you're going to work with for 6 to 9 months. So figure out if it's a personality fit. What's your typical response time? Some really good lawyers will respond every couple of days. Some will be, immediate. It really depends. I think on the front end, when it comes to like pre-LOI stuff and maybe less serious stuff, the typical response time might be a little bit lagging. But what's key there is that as the deal heats up, as you get closer to closing, you want to make sure that your lawyer is responding, because there's going to be a million different changes towards the end. And if they're not, they can cause a lot of problems. Your current workload, do you have capacity Lawyers, like myself, like an advisor or anyone investing kind of financial services, their capacity is based off how many hours they have in their day. So if you're working with a lawyer that's really busy and really overworked and they can't get back to you, it might be better to go with someone else who has a little bit more capacity, but maybe less experience, because you'll be their crown jewel of their deal book versus someone who's doing a bunch of different deals. And how do you handle broken deals? Good to understand their process and fees. Some lawyers are great. They'll roll dead deal costs into your next deal. It's still painful. Obviously, you're paying that out of pocket, but it can be helpful to understand that. And, up market, down market, a lot of these lawyers have good structures, interesting structures in the lower middle market and the micro market. So just take your time, interview some people, interview a handful of people, interview Eric for giving us this great information. But I'll start to, integrate some more stuff outside of just finance and valuation in other service fields to get us a better idea. So that's today's video. Enjoy and let me know any questions.